personally know someone who's been infected by COVID? If so, I'd like to hear your story and go ahead and share. Donald?
I always like to be the first up because I bring you down and then we got to get this thing back up again. Okay, so to add additionally to your statistics, right? According to a May 7th CDC report, that Latino and Black folks make up about 13.4% of the population, and we are 60% affected adversely by coronavirus. So that goes without saying that our community is affected at a higher level. Yep. Now, I've had a very close friend of mine. His name was Lieutenant, and I'll say his name because everyone knows it. B, you might even know him, Lieutenant James Walker. He was a 30-year police lieutenant, Philadelphia Police Department. His beautiful wife, Vita. Him and I were dual godfathers to my daughter's, my cousin's daughter. And he was 59 years old, 6 months from retirement after doing his 30 years. Went into the hospital on I believe it was a Thursday or Friday, and he passed that following Sunday. And we were praying, everybody was praying, and this guy was in great physical shape. This is before we knew all the underlying, if you had all these underlying symptoms, but he was a phenomenal dude. And yes, so I personally have been affected by the COVID. And so I take it very seriously, even though in the beginning, I thought it was a political stunt. Because, and the reason why, I've been tracking the numbers. So I tracked Florida, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. And for a long time, there's 12 million people in Pennsylvania, and our numbers it was really less than 1% of the entire population. And I got a whole notepad of notes, several pages of notes. Not only do I track the city and state, but I also track the county. And so I used this data to determine when I was going to open my office back up, because I closed my office down March 15th, and I had 33 of.
Were you surprised when you thought it might potentially be a hoax or a political stunt, and you looked at the statistics in Pennsylvania? Were you surprised because the numbers were low? Is that what
I was surprised because when they first started talking about it, the numbers wasn't matching up to what they were saying. Now, obviously, New York got hit the hardest, right? And I had a child, one of my kids was up in New York, so I was concerned about her. But in Pennsylvania, I still, as I tracked, literally I tracked the numbers for 90 days, consistently 90 days. And based on that 90th day is when I determined to open the office. So yeah, so the numbers, more people were getting sick by the flu or had gotten sick by the flu than by this virus. But then the numbers just started to jump, and they started to jump, and they would jump double and triple. And so that got me concerned. And then when the governor and they start shutting down schools, there was no longer a political ploy in my mind. I was like, no, this is real. Now we got to start taking precautions, because every category they talked about, I'm part of. I'm overweight, I'm Black, I'm over 50, I suffer from, even though it's under control, diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol. And I felt if I got sick, it was just going to be a wrap for me. So,
interesting.
I took it real personal.
Interesting you share that, because I felt the same as far as symptoms, right? Like, someone who has who's more prone to actually catching that virus. It became something very serious for me. Also, how about you, man? Do you know anybody that's been personally affected by this, or?
Early in the game, I think around April or May at my job, I had a coworker that had went to on vacation in one of the hot spots and came back and never really mentioned anything about it and started coming down with the symptoms really hard. He tried to hide the fact until one day it just got really, really bad, and they had to call a fire rescue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So kind of affected the job a little bit at that point with some of the other coworkers that they had to get tested and everything. Everybody had to have, so many days off at that point. Myself, I wasn't in close proximity, by the grace of God, I wasn't. But yeah, and it was kind of, you know, it was kind of unnerving. It was kind of unsettling because, you know, not sharing that information. And then, you know, when you got to come home to your family and you find out somebody kind of quote unquote hid that situation, you're a little angry, you're a little bitter, right? So
Yeah.
we kind of had to hunker down here at my home. And then I had to take into account with my in-laws, because my father-in-law is a diabetic and my mother-in-law has heart condition. So we had to kind of keep our circle tight before we could even go over there, you know, before we could usually, you know, we usually visit them during the week, and we had to kind of around that time kind of stay inside. So, you know, once you got past the anger, then you got past the reality of hoping that you didn't, praying that you didn't have it. And by the grace of God, none of us did have it. And, you know, of course, time passed, and, you know, but it was just, it wasn't a smart move on that worker's behalf. It really wasn't.
Yeah, no, I hear you, bro. That's interesting. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about guidelines next, right? And people following and not following guidelines. Your thoughts on that? Uh, right now, Baller, you know anybody personally impacted by that?
Yeah, she you know how sometimes you have that older lady, not necessarily she's your mother, that mother figure, but you look to her as that's your mom, you know, but of course not your mom. I had somebody in my life like that. I've known her 20 plus years maybe,
Yeah.
if not even more. She contracted COVID. Her daughter, who actually called me and was like, "Mom, Barry's in the hospital," and I was like, "What?" You know, and she was, of course, older. One of those things that you know you and the preacher were saying as far as diabetes and things like that. You know, she was handling that, but she became sick, and you know, you go through that. You can only talk to her on the phone. Now, mind you, because I'm law enforcement, I was able to only get to the floor of where she was. I couldn't actually enter the room. So I just let the nurse know to let her know I was there. So, like later on in the evening, I talked to her. But within a few weeks, it became progressively worse. And of course, nobody could go up to the hospital, and that is what was hurting her, you know, and it was hurting me not to actually have physical contact to let her know, like actually see me, like, "Moms, I'm here." I'm like,
support.
You know, all we can say is, you know, we're gonna say it's gonna be all right, but again, this being something new to everyone, you know, you don't know how it's gonna play out. You heard that other people didn't die from this, but you're not hoping your loved one is going to be happen to them, you know. And unfortunately, she did pass, you know, and the funeral home had it spaced out, each chair 6 feet apart.
Right.
It was a limited amount of people in the funeral home. I want to say it had to be 12 to 15 people in the funeral home they allowed in there. Everybody else, of course, was still outside, and everybody else had to wear masks, singing there, and things like that. And it was heavier than it should be, because, you know, we try to say they're okay now. But there was a sense of more heavy than I would say a regular heavy. If I'm going to a regular funeral, it was more, because
You're referring to
I want
emotionally.
this person to know that, hey, I love you. Yeah.
Baller, I'm sorry, you're referring to emotionally as far as heavy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, and I'm like, and like when you hear about other people going, and you can sympathize, and some people can empathize. You know, and I was like, I don't want that to happen to me again, somebody close to me. But again, law enforcement, here I go, one of our fallen soldiers, you know, whatever. So I was actually right with the preacher, thinking, "Oh, this is some BS." But just like, you know, you hear about the flu and everything else, and then, you know, people being shot, it doesn't affect you until it hits home.
It has to become personable.
Yeah, and that's what people miss. You know, you're missing because it hasn't hit your immediate family or somebody you interact with every day, oh, I'm okay, you know, and it's so far from the truth, so far from the truth, you know. And then like I actually carry her obituaries in my car,
right?
You know, so sometimes I just go back and be like, and I just reflect on certain things, and I'm like, yo, and I really get mad when I'm out, you know, and if I'm not at work, I'm out, and I see people with no mask on and stuff like this, you know, but I carry my badge on wherever I go, and sometimes I go into that flipping my badge over. Listen, I point to it, and sometimes they look at me, you know, and because I'm actually not working, I don't push it.
Yeah.
But if I'm working, I'm pushing it. You're going to either put a mask on or you're going to step out the store or whatever, wherever this public place, wherever this environment is, that is a gathering of a lot of people. Now, if it's outside, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Because when you see it firsthand, man, you can kind of, it hits you here. Bottom line.
Right. No, I got you,
You
bro.
know, it affects you in so many levels that I'm like, I don't understand these people.
No, I got you. I appreciate that, bro. Thank you for sharing that, man. Crooner, tell us.
I've had a few people, man. I had my on my brother's side, my nephew and my niece both come down with the virus. I was worried about my brother more than my nephew because they stay in the same household, and my brother got all the underlying conditions. I kept telling him, like, stay away, stay away. I know that's your boy. You want to do all you can, but stay away from him. And after about 3 weeks, he was better. I had a good friend of mine. Guy been following me karaoke for over 25 years. We just reacquainted each other up in Temecula. He would come to my show all the time, man. But he was successful with his business. So therefore, when they shut down, they gave him free passes to go anywhere. And he took advantage of all the free passes. And I kept telling him, slow down, man, slow down, slow down, slow down. He didn't slow down. Tahoe, Vegas, he was everywhere, man, because they kept giving free passes, you know, because the economy was sucking. They said, we want people to come out of here. So you want to come out here, come out of here. And he passed on, man. And then what's so funny, to make it political, I said, why he didn't get the Trump medicine? You know, this is messed up, man. You know, keep telling people we're not gonna be treated the same. We can't get what Trump and the rest of his family get. We can't do it.
$100,000 is what those
that's what it cost
him.
Yeah,
100,000. Those 5 treatments that he $100,000.